at the meeting, Climates is really taking part in Yongo's activities, the youth constituency. We're spread across the various working groups and are trying to organize some actions to raise awareness about certain issues, especially the rescue of the adaptation fund, an action that we did yesterday. There are also some of our people in the loss and damage working groups. There are really some issues that we want to make sure as young people are discussed thoroughly and fairly here. But we're also having, we're making an effort to reach out beyond these walls and outside of the conference, especially for an initiative that we're launching with some partners, which is called COP in My City. It's a decentralized effort to engage young people on climate and climate negotiations in a way that's a bit different from what it's done today. The main strategy for youth groups today is to send as many delegates as possible to the COP, where it's at. But as we've seen here, there are considerable financial constraints and as well accreditation limitations that have prevented many young people from participating in these talks, and yet we feel that they definitely have a responsibility to find out about what's happening and a right to be involved and represented fairly. And so what we try to do instead is that people bring the COP home, is that they bring these negotiations close to them, in their backyard, so to speak. And so in about 15 different cities around the world, in many continents, in Nepal, in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, there are a series of events that are currently unrolling. We have organized several student simulations of the negotiations with young people putting themselves in the skin of various countries and trying to come up with to an agreement together. And with our help from our partner at Climate Interactive, we've been able to use a software that very easily and clearly materializes the result, the outcome of the negotiation. We factor in the commitments that they have agreed to, and that gives us a global warming target. So it's a really creative and I guess more playful way of getting involved in this. It's really, we want to empower young people to be actors of this and to see what it's like to be in a position of power, of compromise, of decision, and all the constraints that you have to factor in before you reach an agreement. And so these simulations are a big part of the project. We also have many public conferences, some flash mobs, some workshops, trainings, etc., to really make sure that as many young people as possible get involved in this and understand what's at stake. And through these tiny, very technical lens of the climate negotiations can get in touch with the broader aspects of climate change, the solutions, the problem. And we hope that by this way we can benefit from the decreasing, but still there, the media exposure that these climate talks get to put a bell on climate change, and at least at some moments in the year make sure that this is talked about widely, not just here in Warsaw, not just in Lima, not just in Paris, but in as many locations as possible around the world.
If you can explain COP in the City a bit further for young people who might want to get involved and how it could help achieve a global deal.
So, COP in My City is a very open-ended initiative. In a way, we see it as something that aims at becoming much bigger than ourselves, and that, you know, in the next year, in the next 2 years, people will really take ownership of it. Just keep rallying under the same banner so that it stays visible and coherent, but that with just a few friends and some time and energy, you can start your own COP in your own city. And so it has 3 phases. We try to get involved as early as possible before the COP, so that we can first offer some trainings about climate change, about negotiations, how they function, what they have achieved so far, what they have not achieved. And hopefully try to organize some meetings with the national delegations as well, so that they can explain what their job is, how they do it, who they represent, with some youth delegates, if that program exists in the country. And then during COP, we really try to make participants feel like they are here with us, by organizing some live chats, some trader Q&As, some activities, some debriefs, and really relay their voice also, so that the messages that they have, that the things that they feel at home, can be represented here as well. And for that we are partnering with a great organization that's called Connected Voices, that really has the same purpose, to allowing people to overcome the financial and resource constraints, and still have a voice in this world. And then the third phase is a debrief, where we talk together, possibly among the different COP in my cities that pop up around the world, and that we can debrief about whether the outcome of COP19 is satisfying, what we can look forward to for the next COPs, what we need to work on, all the kind of solutions that we can start implementing right here, right now, in our own backyards, and really use this as a way to avoid the typical drop in activity that we, as young people, experience after COPs. It's a very emotional and tiring and demanding experience, and more often than not, our involvement tends to go a bit like this. And what we try to build is a growing movement around this, a growing interest and pressure that doesn't stop, and that keeps piling up and growing from COP to COP until 2015.
And what do you hope ultimately for 2015, just very quickly, from this?
Well, if I had a wish list.
But briefly, just, I mean, do you think that... Will COP in my city change the results of the meeting in Paris, which is the final moment for a global deal?
It is, I think, too early to tell, but we certainly hope that it can be part of the solution. It's certainly not going to be all of it. But we hope that from year to year, this initiative can really scale up. So this year it's our first, and we already have 15 different COP in my city initiatives around the world. So we're pretty hopeful about that. We think it's a great start, and especially Global South, young people are demonstrating a lot of interest in this, because it's, I guess, relatively cheap way for it, and yet meaningful way for them to get involved in these talks. And we hope that in Lima there will be many more popping up around the world, and for Paris that this can really be a platform to make sure that not just in Paris but in many, many different places around the world, the eyes are fixed on these talks, and that solutions, contribution, pressure can keep being injected into these talks, because this functions very much as a closed circle, as a hub that's pretty exclusive. And I guess we want to also break down the barriers between this and the rest of the world and regular people and so on.